Hey guys! Today we will look at 3 modules we can use for adding some character to the sound: rampage, branches and kinks. Let's start! Okay, so first of all I want to thank my Patreons for their support. It means a lot to me. Thank you. Now the modules we will use today are existing not only in VCV-Rec. We will use branches and kinks from mutable instruments. In VCV-Rec they are the Bernoulli gate and the utilities from audible instruments, and we will use also rampage from Befaco. Now actually we will use only the sample and hold section of kinks, so this technique can work with any sample and hold module, virtual or analog. And let's start with branches or the Bernoulli gate, which will perform a sort of a virtual coin toss and randomly output a signal through either of its outputs. And beautiful things can happen when using audio rate signals. So let's really add a voice. We will use the XFX wave oscillator from Blemsoft. Let's set it to double sine phase distortion. Let's raise also the density so we get some more waves spread all the way up, maybe a bit less detune. And as our sequencer we will use entropia from the geodesics collection. Let's set a 7-step sequence with using this button here. Let's change the blue sequence, the inner circle. Let's do something like this, again only 7 steps. And also some of the yellow ones, so let's say the second one and the 4th and maybe the 5th also. And also their probability, let's say something like this. Very nice. Let's change the yellow sequence to random. We can run entropia with a multiplied clock, every clock multiplied by 4. Let's also quantize this signal. I will just raise the opacity of the cables. Very nice. Let's also quantize this signal with quantum. Let's see. Let's set a scale D, F, A and B flat. And let's send entropia to it. Let's also use a VCA. I will use the one from AS. And an ADSR module. This one will be from Bog Audio. I will send the oscillator to the VCA. We have 2 outputs. It's a stereo oscillator. And the ADSR module to modulate the VCA. The signal from quantum will go to the volt per octave input of the oscillator. And the gate output will receive also from quantum to the ADSR module. And let's have a listen to this. I will take it from the VCA to the mixer. Let's raise the volume a bit. Sustain all the way down, so we have something nice and plucky, also attack. Maybe let's lower it 1 octave. Oh yeah. So we can also modulate the position with entropia. Just take it directly from entropia. What we can also do, we can change the macro state here to add. So both values, the blue one and the yellow one, will be added on those steps. Okay, so this is what we will get, a nice clean sequence. And I should mention I have some reverb here with the plateau. And now let's add some character to the sound with using branches or the Bernoulli gate. Let's send the oscillator also to both inputs of the Bernoulli gate directly from the VCA. Let's turn the probability knob all the way to the left, so the signals will come out from the A outputs only. And let's send both A outputs to the mixer and have a listen. Let's mute the original one. So it sounds the same, but as we turn the probability knob to the right, branches will start outputting the signals also from the B outputs, which means that we will not get the full signals from the A outputs, what adds this gritty effect. So let's start turning them to the right. Oh yeah. Let's listen to this also with the original sound. We can take it all the way also. Not all the way, but a bit more harsh. Something like this maybe. Again, this is without. This is just a clean sound now. And this is with. Very nice. Now branches has also another mode, a toggle mode, which means that branches will randomly choose to output the signals from the same output or from the other output, which can give again a different effect. So let's really change the mode. We can do this by clicking this button here or by right clicking the module, and you can see channel 1 is already on toggle because we clicked the button. Or we can just click now on channel 2, which is on latch mode, and if we right click again we can see it has been changed to toggle. Very nice. Now let's take the probability knobs all the way to the right. So branches will alternate between the A outputs and the B outputs, which will again have a different effect. This one is a bit more, let's say, gritty, less noisy. Let's listen just to this. And now with the original sound, without branches, and with. So you can listen how much character this adds to the sound. Again, let's take it out and bring it back in. Add lots of character, lots of grittiness. Very nice. Let's move on now to rampage. Now rampage can add lots of nice beefy tones to a sound, and for this we will use the topograph from Valley, which is actually grids for mutable instruments. Let's drive it with the same clock, the same multiplied by 4 clock. Let's set an external clock on the topograph by taking this knob here to the left until it says external. Let's run it also. And let's set the topograph to a clock resolution of 4 pulses per quarter note, which is this here, because we have a clock multiplied by 4. Let's also reset everything, so topograph and also entropia. Let's reset it. And now let's start adding some voices. We will use tremor from Volt and also a snare drum module from Hora. Let's trigger the different voices with topograph. I have here 3 trigger outputs. This will be the kick, this will be the hi-hat, and this will be the snare. And let's have a listen. So the kick, I have here a special or a dedicated mono channel after the reverb. This is our kick, this will be our hi-hat, and this will be our snare. And let's start changing the sequence a bit. Let's change the maps, something like this maybe, add some chaos. The kick is okay, maybe just a bit less, a bit more hi-hat, and a bit less snare. Something like this. Let's change the sound of the hi-hat also a bit. Something like this maybe, also less noise for the snare. Very nice. Now we will want to mix the different voices before sending them to Rampage, so let's use shades or the mixer from Audible Instruments. Let's just put also Rampage here. Let's send all the different voices also to shades, also to the mixer. So this will be our kick, this will be our hi-hat, and our snare. Let's take the volume all the way up. And now all the voices will come out from the last output mixed together because the outputs are normalized. So let's send this output, the last output of shades or the mixer, to the input, to input A of rampage. Now the crunchy sound or the altered sound will come out of the rising and falling outputs, from which we will receive a signal whenever the falling phase or the rising phase came to an end. It's really useful when using rampage as a function generator, and it can create really nice tones when using with audio rate signals. So let's send both outputs to the mixer, the rising and the falling. Very nice, and start raising the volume. Oh yeah. Oh man. Oh yes. Again, without. Nice and clean. But with lots of character. You can listen also just to this. So this is just what's coming out of rampage. We can change also the rise and fall times and get different results. Oh yeah. Change the range. Let's listen to this with the other voices. This, I like this the most, actually. Oh yeah, with all the other voices. Oh yes, now let's take out just the altered voices or the voices with character. So branches and rampage. It's nice, but it has no character to it. Let's add branches first. Already it feels different. And rampage. Oh yeah. Okay, very cool. Now let's move on to kinks, also the kick drum. And again, you can utilize this technique with any sample and hold module. And the idea behind it is to reduce the sample rate of the signal and create a nice rough tone. And let's see this also shortly on the scope. So I will use 2 oscillators from Bog Audio, just the normal oscillators. Let's add also the scope. Very nice. Now let's zoom in all the way so we can see everything nice and clear. Okay, so I will take a sine wave from one oscillator directly to the scope. This will be the sine wave that we will sample, and this will go also to the input of the sample and hold of kinks. And I will use the second oscillator to trigger the sample and hold. So let's take the frequency all the way up and the square wave to the trigger input. And the output will go also to the scope. Let's just change the position. Already you can see that something looks a bit different here. And as I reduce or lower the frequency of the triggering oscillator, you can see that the sine wave is becoming steppy because we reduced the sample rate. And this will create a nice character, will add a nice character to the sound. Very cool. So let's get back to our patch. I will get rid of the scope and also one oscillator. The other one we will use later. Now let's add a voice. We will use the WCO oscillator from Edge, which is inspired by the oscillator from Dove Audio. Let's use also constants from ML, which will output a constant voltage in steps of semitones, and also a sequential switch, and we'll use the one from the fundamental modules. This will be our sequencer. Let's clock it with a divided clock, a clock divided by 8, and also reset everything with our clock. Now let's send the +5 semitones to the 4th step, and a +7 to the third step. We will use also the pitch tool, the pitch tools module from 21 kHz. Send the signal from the sequential switch to the pitch tools module, and from there to the oscillator, to the volt per octave input of the oscillator. Now, because we are using a few notes from the D minor scale, we will have to tune this oscillator to D. So now it's on C, C sharp, D, and let's see how this sounds like. I will send this oscillator to the mixer. Let's maybe lower it 1 octave. We can modulate the window width with entropia, and also both oscillators or both waves. Let's take the front and the rear. Oh yeah. Okay, now let's take this oscillator to the sample and hold, to the input of the sample and hold. So the sample and hold will sample this oscillator, and we will use again the oscillator from Bog Audio to trigger the sample and hold. Let's take it again all the way up, and let's send this to the mixer, see how this sounds like. Already it adds some grit, but let's start reducing or lowering the frequency of this triggering oscillator. Oh yeah. Oh yes. Without just the sample signal. You can hear how much character this sound has. Let's add all the other voices. Let's take again all the voices with character out. So this was the sample and hold, rampage, and branches. Again, nice and clean, but lacks character. Let's start adding the voices. Bernoulli, rampage. Oh yes. Kinks. Very nice. Very cool. Okay guys, that was it. Like always, there will be a link in the description to this patch. You can download it and have a closer look. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button. If you enjoy what I do, consider becoming a Patreon. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe and hit the bell. And have a good one.